Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Jim Grisanzio from the Oracle Groundbreakers team, and we're back for a conversation here in support of the Oracle Groundbreakers Asia Pacific virtual tour, which is taking place right now, this week and next week. It's a huge, massive experience, 11 days, over 100 speakers, 4 languages, and all kinds of technologies, cloud, Java, database, applications, everything. And for right now, I'm here with Franco Ucci in Adelaide, Australia. Franco, welcome to the program.
Hey, Jim, how are you?
I'm doing well. You're my new friend we just discovered here. And I try and for each one of these tours, I'm actually trying to meet with new people, who I haven't interviewed before. So I saw your name on the speaker list and I don't know you. So that's why we're here. So you are a senior director for cloud down, actually for Australia and New Zealand down there. And so let's talk a little bit about, I want to talk about a whole bunch of things here, but let's start off with what your sessions are that you're going to be talking about at the conference.
Sure. So the session I'm going to be covering coming up is going to be called Oracle APAC, Low Code for Data Driving Applications. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the approach that you could choose to take, which is all about speed. It's about outcome. It's about doing things iteratively. And I specifically talk about 4 different approaches that's possible with Oracle Application Express.
Okay, so Apex is very popular these days. I notice it's got a huge community. It's growing, and everything I hear internally at Oracle, everyone's quite excited about it. Are you experiencing the same sort of experience in the field?
We totally are. It's actually interesting. I joined Oracle in '89. And it was probably about 2000 and it was actually the late 90s that I got to know a product called HTMLDB and Flows. And I had this guy called Mike Hitchwa that was driving it. And I got to know the product reasonably well back then and saw that it was a productivity capability. If you had an idea of what you wanted to do with data for applications. And I got across that fairly quickly and realized this is a good thing. Shortly thereafter, I got caught up in middleware, application development, and I will actually say I got quite religious about the 3-tiered approach. And that is separate your data from your application logic, from your experience, etc. And while I loved what Apex could do for you, I tried to stay away from it because I felt like I needed to practice the industry patterns. So I did my best to stay away from it. Probably 2 or 3 years ago, I thought I'd have another look. And I just loved, you can't ignore it. And while some people may say it's an anti-pattern, just the amount of productivity and what's possible with data is incredible.
So I've heard this said over and over and over again, but why? Why is that?
I actually think, if you think about applications themselves, applications are models of how we want to do something. And when you break them down into, forms or windows or reports or columns or attributes or whatever, you actually work out it's another data model. It's another data model. And so people like Mike Hitchwa and Joel Kalman, they've worked out how do you turn an application into a runtime data model that effectively is like a framework or an ecosystem that you can take advantage of. And so if you enter your data so it can be generated into an application, you can take advantage of it. And and so, I look at that and you go, even today with what's coming out with things like JavaScript and those sorts of things, they've data driven all of that. And also today, you look at what's possible with REST APIs and JSON. There's similar implementations of, how do we interact with things taking a data-driven approach. So I look at Apex and say, that's probably the most perfect personification of something that's data driving interactions.
Interesting. And it seems like it's offering new opportunities to new developers to get involved in the various, Oracle communities too, because there's a lot of people now that seem new to this ecosystem.
Yeah, I think what happens is once people understand the 3 or 4 different ways in which you can use Application Express, people pick up, they can make industrious contribution to a problem and actually check in, is this right or not? Or do I need to iterate? It's actually a very fast way to get some sort of response. And some of the times those responses end up becoming live apps or things that keep changing.
Yeah. Some of this low code stuff I've been looking at is really interesting because even I can do it, right? So.
Well, I'm not a young guy. I'm in the twilight of my career. I should be a manager looking at systems and, spreadsheets and making decisions. I'm looking at it this way. Apex is a great way to validate what we should be doing for customers. And sometimes you keep it in Apex and sometimes you then move it to a proper 3-tier architecture that's got Kubernetes and Terraform scripts, etc. So I look at Apex as a great way to validate your idea and help customers and partners understand what is possible.
Cool. So in terms of your job, in terms of the scope, you're dealing mostly with your customers and partners.
Exactly. So I'm part of the Australian and New Zealand business. We've got organizations that are considering, what should they be doing on premise or in the cloud. And part of what I do, I lead a team where we go out, we hear what organizations' challenges are. We draw a few pictures of what's possible, what's not. And quite often we actually then show them how we can take what their challenge is and manifest something very quickly. And whether it's using Oracle Apex or the autonomous database or analytics or integration, we can actually help validate things.
Okay, cool. So when are you giving this session? We got 2 weeks here for this conference.
It's actually next Tuesday, which I think is the 27th. It'll be 12:30 about lunchtime for me.
Okay, cool. All right. So excellent. Well, good luck with it. I'm sure it'll go well. It's a big conference and there's lots of people interested from around the world. I was a part of the tour last year. I went to 4 or 5 of the countries, but this year it's virtual. So you're bound to draw more people from more regions. So I wanted to talk to you about what motivates you, because you sound, we just met here actually for the first time, but I can pick up a certain amount of passion you have for technology and for working with people. I'm just interested, what motivates you?
I actually like coding. I like playing with software, but I actually like building stuff and being part of dealing with something that's got a problem of some sort. So like being surrounded by other natural, curious people, enjoy the odd academic argument about how should we do something. And then, once we've had a bit of a conversation, sometimes I just want to get something built and learn from it as a collective. and try and go somewhere quickly with, what you've learned versus just keeping it up there. And it does traverse, some of it is outside of what I do at Oracle. I do some, actually through my daughter, I've been able to apply a lot of my computing capabilities in the mountains of Timor,
Wow.
where we've been going there for a number of years. And initially, we were just taking old computers, put Ubuntu on them that had LibreOffice, and got them up and going. And obviously, if you're using old computers, they needed power. And in the mountains of Timor, that could be quite challenging. And then a few years ago, we worked out that there were a couple of engineers at Cisco back in 2009 who actually worked out how they could create a Wi-Fi hotspot on something like a Raspberry Pi.
Ah, nice.
And on that, they would have a Apache listener, and they worked out how they could grab some learning content and put that on there. Since then, it's become a huge initiative that's really evolved. It's now called Rachel Pi, and Rachel stands for Remote Area Community Hotspot for Education and Learning. And it includes learning content from the Khan Academy, as well as 3 or 4 other organizations, includes agricultural, mechanicals on how to fix trucks and cars and motorbikes, etc. So we've actually worked out how to take these devices into the mountains of Timor, either usually connect it with some sort of solar battery or some sort of battery of some sort, and get it up and going. So that's another side of enjoying my technology and what's possible.
That's really cool to hear. When I used to work at Sun, actually work at Sun Microsystems before the acquisition to Oracle, and I lived up in Tokyo, and I used to participate in the Tokyo hackerspace. And there were a lot of people there that came from, these are my friends, they were either hardware or software people that came from the Sun customer base or the community base. A lot of them were Java developers, or they were just, sysadmins at banks or something, but they were all within the ecosystem. And they would come together on the weekends and they would hack on hardware and software, but they ended up actually doing some projects to where they were going into the schools and helping out, in underprivileged areas and things to help people gain access to the internet using equipment that they cobbled together from various places. And it's just, that's the spirit of software and hardware community building. Basically, you come together using your skills. So I picked up on it a little bit, and we were having a conversation earlier, and you mentioned that, and so thanks for sharing that. And so what's next for you? You're presenting at this conference, and I would imagine that you're doing a fair amount of virtual conferences these days.
Yeah, exactly. And there's probably a couple of, let's say, technology angles I enjoy sharing what I'm discovering, and Oracle Apex is definitely one of those. I also enjoy generating data to support demonstrations. And I use Python to do that. Python is really well equipped to do that. So if you get a profile of data that you need, whether it's around policing or financial crime, you can actually, it doesn't take a lot of effort to then generate data, for what you need in real time. And then one of the other technology products I'm enjoying is the actual graph capability. So it's about looking at data from a slightly different angle and dealing with that. So there's probably 2 or 3 areas there that we have a bit of fun with and see how that's, that can make a difference.
Cool. Excellent. All right. Well, Franco, thanks for sharing with me today. Good luck with the conference the rest of the week and next week. And I hope to maybe meet you live someday, and actually live and talking about in person at some event somewhere. And I've never been to Australia or New Zealand, but hopefully someday I can get down there.
Thank you, Jim. Really appreciated the opportunity today.
Cool. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.